Managing Oneself by Peter F. Drucker. Picture this scene. It's the 1950s, and the most powerful man in America is sitting in the Oval Office, completely bewildered. His name? Dwight Eisenhower, war hero, five-star general, the man who orchestrated victory in Europe. Just a decade earlier, journalists practically swooned over his press conferences. He'd field the toughest questions with laser-sharp clarity, wrapping up complex issues in 2 or 3 elegant sentences. But now, those same reporters are tearing their hair out. They're complaining that he dodges questions, rambles aimlessly, and mangles the English language like it personally offended him. Did the weight of the presidency break him? Did age catch up? Here's the twist. Nothing changed about Eisenhower. The secret to his downfall was breathtakingly simple. He didn't know one crucial thing about himself. He was a reader, not a listener. Back in his military days, aides would slip him written questions 30 minutes before press conferences. He'd absorb them, process them, and walk in fully armed. But as president, he followed the playbook of Roosevelt and Truman, who were natural listeners and thrived in chaotic back-and-forth exchanges. Eisenhower, trying to operate outside his nature, floundered. He literally couldn't hear what was being asked. One tiny blind spot about himself was enough to tarnish a legendary career, which makes you wonder, what don't you know about yourself? What hidden superpowers are you overlooking? Today we're exploring a deceptively slim book that tackles life's biggest questions. It's called Managing Oneself by the legendary Peter Drucker. Drucker wasn't just a business guru. He was a philosopher who saw the future coming. He understood that, for the first time in history, ordinary people would need to manage themselves the way only giants like Napoleon or Mozart once did. This isn't just career advice. It's a blueprint for building a life that actually fits you. Here's my promise. By the end of this, you'll have a powerful framework for discovering who you are, what you're meant to do, and how to build a life that makes sense. You'll learn that excellence isn't about fixing yourself. It's about becoming more of who you already are. Let's dive in. For most of human history, your future was decided at birth. Peasant's son, you're farming. Blacksmith's daughter, you're marrying a tradesman. Nobody asked, what should I do with my life? Because there was no question to ask. The world handed you a script, and you followed it. But we live in a radically different reality. You have choices. And with those choices comes a responsibility your ancestors never imagined. You must manage yourself. According to Drucker, this is both the great challenge and opportunity of our era. We're not manual laborers following orders. We're knowledge workers who must direct our own lives. And it all starts with a question most people get spectacularly wrong. That question is, what are my strengths? Most people think they know their strengths, but they're usually mistaken. They waste years trying to patch up weaknesses, climbing from terrible to mediocre. But Drucker says this is pointless. It takes far more energy to become passable at something you're bad at than to go from good to extraordinary at something you're naturally gifted in. You can't build a meaningful life on weakness. Performance only comes from strength. So how do you actually discover your true strengths? Not through personality quizzes or career assessments. Drucker offers a beautifully simple method used by effective leaders for centuries: feedback analysis. Here's the process. Whenever you make an important decision or take a significant action, write down what you expect will happen. Then, 9 to 12 months later, compare reality with your prediction. Do this consistently for 2 or 3 years, and something remarkable emerges. You'll see, with startling clarity, what you're actually good at, not what you wish you were good at. Drucker himself was surprised by his results. He discovered he had an intuitive grasp of technical people, like engineers and accountants. But generalists left him cold. This knowledge let him focus his energy where it mattered most. Feedback analysis does 3 things. First, it shows you where to concentrate your strengths. Place yourself where your natural abilities can produce real results. Second, it reveals where you need to improve, the skills or knowledge that make your strengths truly effective. Maybe you're a brilliant engineer who needs to understand people a bit better, or an exceptional HR professional who should learn basic accounting. Don't let pride create crippling blind spots. Third, it shows you what not to do. It exposes areas where you have no talent and should invest minimal energy. Knowing where you don't belong matters just as much as knowing where you do. But understanding your strengths is only half the equation. The next critical question is, how do I perform? This is about your unique operating system, not what you do, but how you do it. And just like your strengths, your performance style is largely fixed. It's baked into your personality long before you start working. As Drucker wisely notes, do not try to change yourself. You are unlikely to succeed, but work hard to improve the way you perform. It starts with that question we explored. Are you a reader or a listener? We saw how this affected Eisenhower. The opposite played out with Lyndon Johnson. His predecessor, JFK, was a reader who surrounded himself with brilliant writers. When Johnson took over, he kept Kennedy's staff, and they kept sending him detailed memos. But Johnson was a listener. He came from the Senate, where success depends on catching conversational nuances. He never truly grasped what his writers were telling him, and it contributed to his presidency's collapse. A reader pretending to be a listener, or vice versa, is a recipe for disaster. The second performance question is, how do I learn? Schools assume everyone learns the same way, by reading and listening. But for many people, this is torture. Winston Churchill, one of history's greatest writers, struggled in school because he learned by writing. Being forced to learn through listening was, in his words, sheer hell. Beethoven learned by taking extensive notes. He reportedly never looked at his sketchbooks again, but writing things down cemented them in his mind forever. Some people learn by doing, others by hearing themselves talk. Drucker shares the story of a CEO who transformed a small family business into an industry leader. Once a week, he'd summon his senior staff and talk at them for hours, arguing 3 different sides of every issue. He didn't want their input. He needed an audience to think out loud. That's how he learned. Understanding how you learn separates the effective from the ineffective. There are more questions too. Do you work well with people, or are you a loner? If you collaborate, in what kind of relationship? Some people are natural subordinates. General George Patton was perhaps the Army's best subordinate ever, but his commander said he'd make the worst leader. He needed someone to rein him in. Others thrive as team members, coaches, or mentors. Are you a decision maker or an advisor? Many brilliant advisors crumble when making final calls. That's why number 2 people often fail when promoted to the top spot. The top job requires a decision maker, but they were chosen as number 2 because they were trusted advisors. They know what should be decided but can't accept the responsibility of deciding. Do you thrive under stress or need predictability, big organization or small one? Answering these questions gives you the manual to your unique operating system. It lets you say yes to the right opportunities and, just as importantly, no to the wrong ones. Once you understand your strengths and performance style, you face the ultimate question: what are my values? This isn't just about ethics, though that's part of it. For ethics, Drucker proposes the mirror test. He tells of a German diplomat in early 1900s London, highly respected and destined for greatness. But in 1906, he abruptly resigned. Why? He was asked to host a dinner for King Edward VII, a notorious womanizer who made clear what kind of entertainment he expected. The ambassador reportedly said, "I refuse to see a pimp in the mirror when I shave in the morning." That's the mirror test. Ethics requires asking, what kind of person do I want to see in the mirror each morning? But values go deeper. They determine environments where you can thrive. An organization's values must be compatible with yours, not identical, but close enough to coexist. Working somewhere with incompatible values condemns you to frustration and failure. Consider the HR executive who deeply believed in promoting from within. Her company was acquired by one that believed in hiring from outside for fresh blood. Both approaches have merit, but they represent fundamentally different values about company-employee relationships. After years of frustration, she quit, despite significant financial loss. Her values and the organization's simply didn't align. Sometimes your strengths and values conflict. What you do well, even brilliantly, may not fit what you believe in. Drucker shares a personal story. In the 1930s, he was a successful young investment banker in London. The work suited his strengths perfectly, but he couldn't see himself making a real contribution as an asset manager. People, he realized, were what I valued. He saw no point in being the richest man in the cemetery. So in the middle of the Great Depression, with no money and no job prospects, he quit. It was the right decision, because values are the ultimate test. Now you have the 3 pillars of self-knowledge: strengths, performance style, and values. With these, you can answer the next questions: where do I belong? And what should I contribute? Knowing the answers lets you look at opportunities and say, yes, I'll do that, but here's how it should be structured, how I should approach it, and what results you should expect from me, because this is who I am. Successful careers aren't planned. They develop when people are prepared for opportunities because they know themselves. The critical shift is from asking what do I want to do to what should my contribution be. Given what the situation requires and who I am, my strengths, performance style, and values, how can I make the greatest contribution? Drucker offers the example of a new hospital administrator. The hospital was prestigious but coasting. He decided his contribution would be establishing excellence in one key area within 2 years. He focused on the emergency room, visible and sloppy. His goal: every patient seen by a qualified nurse within 60 seconds. Within a year, the ER became a national model, and soon the whole hospital transformed. His plan was focused, time-bound to about 18 months, and aimed for results that were a stretch but achievable, meaningful, and visible. That's the blueprint for making a contribution. But almost no one achieves results alone. This brings us to the final piece: responsibility for relationships. This has 2 parts. First, accept that other people are individuals, just like you. They have their own strengths, performance styles, and values. To be effective, understand the people you work with, especially your boss. The secret to managing the boss is observing them, understanding how they work, and adapting to what makes them effective. If your boss is a listener, don't write memos. Talk to them. If they're a reader, don't just show up unannounced. Send them a report first. Second, take responsibility for communication. Most personality conflicts in organizations happen because people don't know what others are doing, how they're doing it, or what contribution they're making. And they don't know because they haven't asked. In today's world of cross-functional specialists, it's your duty to educate your coworkers. If you're in marketing, make sure the VP of sales understands what you're doing and why. Conversely, she needs to make sure you understand her goals. Be proactive. Go to your coworkers and say, this is what I'm good at. This is how I work. These are my values. This is the contribution I plan to make. The response is always, this is so helpful. Why didn't you tell me earlier? Then ask them the same questions. This builds trust, the foundation of any modern organization. Finally, Drucker looks ahead with a chapter on the second half of your life. In the past, people worked punishing manual jobs, and if they survived to 40, they were happy to coast. But today, knowledge workers aren't finished at 45. They're often just bored. They've peaked in their careers, but still have 20 or 25 working years ahead. That's why managing oneself leads to starting a second career. There are 3 paths. First, actually start a new career. Move to a different organization or field entirely. Second, develop a parallel career. Stay in your main job, but take on a serious role in a nonprofit, like running church administration or serving on a school board. Third, become a social entrepreneur. Use success from your first career to build a venture-serving society. The critical point: you must prepare for the second half of your life long before you enter it. If you don't start volunteering before 40, you're unlikely to do it past 60. This second interest isn't just a hobby, it's a vital source of community and purpose. It's your answer to life's inevitable setbacks. When you face failure at work or tragedy at home, this second area is where you can still contribute, make a difference, and succeed. In the end, managing oneself may seem simple, but it's revolutionary. It demands you think and behave like the CEO of your own life. In a world where knowledge workers outlive their organizations and remain constantly mobile, self-management isn't optional. It's the key to a life of contribution, dignity, and achievement. When you first encounter Managing Oneself, you might be surprised by how short it is. It's more pamphlet than book. But in those few pages, Peter Drucker delivers a more profound and practical life guide than countless volumes, 10 times its size. Why does this work, written decades ago, feel more relevant than ever? I believe it's because Drucker doesn't offer trendy hacks or superficial tricks. He deals with timeless truths. In an age where we're constantly told to reinvent ourselves, overcome weaknesses, and follow prescribed paths to success, Drucker's message is almost radical in its simplicity. Start with who you are. Don't try to become someone else. Instead, have the courage to understand your unique design and the discipline to build a life around it. The most powerful lesson for me is radical self-acceptance. Do not try to change yourself. You are unlikely to succeed, he writes. This isn't complacency. It's strategic focus. It's about channeling your finite energy into areas where you can have exponential impact, rather than wasting it on futile battles against your own nature. It's about building on the foundation you were given, not wishing for different land. For a young person standing at life's threshold, this book is an indispensable compass. Here are some ways you can start applying its wisdom today. First, start your feedback analysis journal now. You don't need to be a CEO. When you apply for a summer job, choose a major project, or set a sports goal, write down what you expect will happen. Note what you think your contribution will be. In 6 months, look back. Were you right? What did you learn about your actual strengths? This simple habit will give you a data-driven map of yourself more valuable than any opinion. Second, become an observer of how you perform. For the next week, pay attention. Do you truly understand something after hearing it in a lecture, or only when you read the textbook? When solving tough problems, do you need to talk it out, or go be alone? Just noticing these things, without judgment, will begin revealing your personal operating system. Third, practice the mirror test. You'll face moments, even small ones, where you'll be tempted to do something that feels slightly off, misaligned with who you want to be. In those moments, ask yourself, when I see myself in the mirror tomorrow, will I be proud? This is your internal compass, and learning to listen to it now will save you from mountains of regret later. Managing oneself isn't about climbing ladders. It's about building a life of purpose, effectiveness, and integrity. It's about becoming the person you were always meant to be. That was a summary of Managing Oneself by Peter Drucker. We've touched on the core principles today, but I'll be honest, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure is found on the journey itself. The true magic happens in quiet reading moments, when a particular story or simple phrase connects with you unexpectedly. This summary is a doorway, designed to help you see if the room beyond is worth exploring. If anything we've discussed today has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just learning, it's an investment in yourself that will pay dividends for the rest of your life. The link to the book is in the description. Also, if you found this journey valuable, please show your support by hitting that like button and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next exploration into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.